Welcome back, everyone, to another video. So as of late, there's a man named ALAA DEEN. I'll just kind of recap the story. So I went on a live stream on the Christian Apologetics Network channel. So they go live about every Saturday, about say 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, around then. So I was a little late, so I joined. And then usually there's a man named ALAA DEEN that joins after they're done doing their presentation. And we had a 4-on-1 discussion. Now, this wasn't pre-planned, like this wasn't like an ambush or anything. This is a Christian live stream with multiple Christians there, and I happened to join. So this man, ALAA DEEN, out of his own accord, joined a live stream where there were 4 Christians. So it was 4 of us against 1 of him, but this wasn't a matter where we were trying to ambush him. He chose to join against us 4. And one of them wasn't even talking that much. He was there, kind of there to moderate. He didn't really speak as much. He only kind of spoke he was the host. He spoke when he was gone, just to kind of fill in his thoughts, but he wasn't really involved in the discussion much. It was mostly a 3-on-1, mostly, which doesn't make it like any less of a handicap, but just pointing that out. Now, I reposted the discussion on my channel, and he commented about him being in a 4-on-1 situation and none of us could answer his question. And I'm going to try to pull up the comment here in a second. And I kind of responded by saying, well, I'm willing to address this very topic with you one-on-one, so there's no interference. I think that sounds like a very reasonable proposal. If you don't like it that there were multiple people, then it should be reasonable that, okay, let's have a one-on-one discussion, and that will make things a bit more fair. And then I can address your questions without any interference. And he declined, and I'm pulling up the things right now. He declined, and his reasoning was essentially, you're not as smart as me. That's his entire reasoning for rejecting the discussion from me. Now, I don't believe that's a real reason why he's rejecting the conversation. We'll see that in a little bit, probably in this video. But you'll see right here, this is the proof. This is the man, ALAA DEEN, in that live stream. You can go check the comments for yourself. I'm not lying. I'm not making this up. I'm putting it right here, black and blue. I can hit read more here. And he says, first of all, he says, what is the point in doing the discussion one-on-one? And he says, with all due respect, you're not on my level in knowledge to talk with you alone one-on-one. Now, I'm not going to sit here talking about, oh, how disrespectful that was to me, because it was not with all due respect. When he said with all due respect, he mean with the most disrespect I can. But I'm going to move past that. I'm not going to sit here complaining about that because it's not the purpose of this video. So what I'm going to do in this video is addressing, because that's what he seems to want. He wants us to address his question. So I'm going to do this alone in this video. I'm going to address some of the points he brought up, the 2 main questions he brought up. And then at the end, I'm going to give my invitation. There will be 2 proposals. And if he doesn't accept any of the proposals, then I'm going to take it as he's running away. That's going to be my conclusion. I've already made somewhat of a similar proposal on that live stream, or not. It wasn't a proposal, but it was sort of a little dilemma, like answer my question or I'm going to take it as a concession. So I'm doing the same thing here. You can either have a discussion with me, take my other proposal, or I'll take you as running, and we'll get to that at the end. So if you don't care to watch this whole presentation here, then go to the end where I make my proposals. But anyways, we're going to go to the first point, which is at 1:20 in this video. He makes his question.
Without your blood, killing innocent Jesus in barbaric way on the cross in the name of love, or he has to kill innocent Jesus for your salvation? Can you have salvation without killing innocent Jesus, or he should be killed in a barbaric way on the cross and cursed him?
All right, so I do want to point out a couple things. Number one, no matter how you die, you're probably going to consider it as brutal. Now, maybe you can make a difference between complete bloodshed and, oh, he died in his sleep. Sure. But however you want to put it, death isn't a pretty thing. So that's going to be number one. So the brutality of death, I really think that's just an irrelevant point, and I don't know what it's supposed to prove. But he's sort of putting this in a way where it's like Oh my goodness. This is so, I just I don't get it. He's pointing brutality as if it brings some point, and I'm not sure what point it's supposed to bring. That's going to be number one. But number two, why did Jesus have to die for us? Why couldn't there be another way? Now, did Jesus have to die in the exact way on the cross? Maybe not. Maybe God could have selected another means. Maybe he could have been hung. Maybe he could have been just stabbed brutally to death. I don't know. But I do know that God chose the cross, and I do believe that God's choices are better, no matter whether we know the reasoning behind it or not. I believe God's choices are better. His plans are better, and it takes time. And this is real life, right? It takes time to really understand His plans, and we may never understand them fully on Earth, but we got to trust in Him. So I don't know why exactly God specifically chose the cross, but I do know that His plans are perfect, and He chose the cross for a reason. Now, why did Jesus have to die in the first place? And the simple answer is, in order for us to be saved, and mind you, we don't need to be saved. That's something I want to clarify. God doesn't need to save any of us. That is out of His own love that He saved us. He does not need to save us. That was out of His own love for us. We did not deserve it. But in order to accomplish our salvation, payment must be made. And I'm going to pull up the Bible right now. We're going to go to Psalm 7:11. And it says, God is a just judge, right? God is a just judge. And we're going to also look at a few other passages. Let's go to Genesis. So I'll explain my point in Psalm 7:11 in a second. But essentially, I'm going to argue that, just very quickly, very briefly, I'm going to argue that God doesn't just forget about sins. He will pay for them in some way. He may forgive you and pass over you, but in some way, He's going to pay for sins, whether that's in the future or whatever, right? Whether you pay it or not. So, and I'll flesh it out a little more right now. So Genesis chapter 2, verses 16 to 17. And it says, and Yahweh God commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden you may freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat. For in the day you eat of it, you shall surely die. So the punishment for disobeying God here, death. Now, as we know, Adam and Eve broke the rule. They ate the fruit. But notice this, Genesis chapter 3, verse 21. So after they sinned, this is what God did for them. Out of His own grace, also for Adam and his wife, Yahweh God made tunics of skin and clothed them. So not only by pure grace did God, as R.C. Sproul put it, by pure grace, not only did He cover them with these tunics of skin, but these are also tunics of skin. Where the heck did God get the skin from? The skin is from a creature, some sort of animal. So we see here that God had an animal die in their place. Now, obviously, that wouldn't be the ultimate payment, right? Because they still had to suffer certain consequences. So that wasn't an ultimate payment, but it put off the payment. And this is the institution, ultimately, of sacrifices. This is the basis for it. Similar to how God not resting on the seventh day is the basis for the Sabbath. And so also this is the basis for the sacrifices, the animal sacrifices. So we see atonement being for sin. And ultimately, Jesus is the ultimate atonement. Let's just go to, let's see here. I'm going to go to Exodus chapter, not 20, Exodus chapter 12, I believe is verse 3. I'll go to Exodus chapter 12 in general, and then we'll go to John 1:29. Okay, Exodus 12:5 here. It says, your lamb shall be without blemish, right? A lamb without blemish. So it cannot be a lamb that's tainted. And this lamb is for the Passover. So here in this is the institution of the Passover celebration. But here is the actual Passover event in Exodus chapter 12. And if you had the lamb, the angel of death would pass over that that house that had the lamb's blood and not go into them and kill the firstborn. So this applies to Jesus. Jesus fulfills this, not literally, like this is not literal prophecy, but Jesus does fulfill this in, I believe it's called typologically. It's a dual fulfillment. This is John 1:29. The next day, John saw Jesus coming toward him and said, behold, the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. So Jesus is the ultimate fulfillment of that. This right here, the Passover, points to Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ takes away our sin so that God's wrath will pass over us because he took the punishment in our place. So that is why that is why Jesus died, and I think part of it also will include the fact that he's taking on so many sins. So maybe, I don't know if this is true, don't quote me on this, but that could be part of the reason, because the weight of the sin of the world is on his shoulders. That may be why the punishment was, or that may be why it was so brutal. I don't know that for sure. That's just a proposition. I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong, I'm happy to be corrected on that. But that's just something I'm throwing out there. That's a possibility. Now it's 6:45 here in this video. He mentions a point, and I'm probably gonna mute it or stop it because I'm not gonna say the word here just for the safety of my channel.
Now, you said that Jesus laid down his life. So, are you trying to tell me that when Jesus laid down his life, that Jesus committed?
So yeah, I think you know what he's about to say. He's going to basically say that Jesus is ending his own life, unaliving himself. That's the nicest way I can put it. I'm trying to make sure I don't get this video taken down, so I'm trying to be careful with the wording here. So I don't know if that's going to get my channel taken down, but either way, some people don't like the word, so I'm just trying to keep it away from the channel as best as I can. So did Jesus unalive himself on the cross in the sense that ALAA DEEN is saying here? No, and we're going to go to the Quran in a second to give you a somewhat similar, not exactly the same, but a somewhat similar example. But not yet. But first, I just want to make my point. So dying, right? There would be a difference, and I think Reg's reason in the discussion brought this up. There is going to be a difference between you sacrificing yourself for someone else and then you just ending your own life for the sake of it. So there's a difference there. Like, for example, someone in war going out to battle to fight for their country, knowing they may die, that is not unaliving yourself. That is a sacrifice. You're sacrificing yourself, putting others before yourself, even, right? Jesus said in John, I don't remember off the top of my head, I think it's in John 15, maybe. Let me try to find it really quick. So right here, this is John 15:13. Greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for his friends. This isn't unaliving yourself. This is a self-sacrifice. You're sacrificing yourself for others. And that is a noble deed, right? If a father of a household sees his family is in danger and he risks his life to protect his family and he ends up dying, that is not unaliving yourself. That is self-sacrifice. You're putting your life and you're putting others' lives before your own and putting your life at risk in order to help others. That is not unaliving yourself. So those are like three, what did I mention? 2 examples now? 3 examples. I'll give you a 4th example from the Quran itself. This is Surah chapter 9, verse 111. Allah has indeed purchased from the believers their lives and wealth in exchange for paradise. They fight in the cause of Allah and kill or are killed. This is a true promise binding on him in the Torah, the Gospel, and the Quran, and his promises is truer than Allah's. So rejoice in the exchange you have made with him. That is truly the ultimate triumph. So essentially, this is kind of talking about people putting their lives at stake, right? It says here, Allah indeed purchased from the believers their lives and wealth, right? It doesn't mean that people are unaliving themselves. That is self-sacrifice. This part of the verse specifically, they fight in the cause of Allah and kill or are killed. So they're fighting for the sake of Allah, right? They're fighting for the sake of Allah. And if they are killed, it is a noble thing. It is not unaliving themselves. Allah doesn't say, if you do that, then you're going to receive my wrath or anything like that. No, they are rewarded for that. So even in the Quran, we see an example. So this thoroughly refutes ALAA DEEN's point. Jesus isn't unaliving himself. It is self-sacrifice.
Mr. Ready to reason, why have you done this to me? Why have you done this to me? Will you answer me? Mr. Reason, why have you done this to me? So when I ask you such a question, does that sound that I am happy with what you have done to me, or I am not happy with what you have done to me? Of course,
what have I done to you?
No. I'm just giving you an example. If I say, why have you done this to me? So does it sound that I am happy, satisfied with what you have done with me, or I am unhappy?
Now, depending on the context, that could be interpreted in different ways. Now, if if you got a slap in the face from a random stranger and say, "Why have you done this to me?" Then yeah, you're probably going to say, well, you're probably mad and upset for the person for doing that. But if if you're playing in a sport and your teammate does something that seems out of the blue, strange, you may ask him, "Why have you done this?" Or not, maybe not to me, but why have you done this? Right? And you're not asking this because you're mad at him for doing it, but you're asking him thinking, what is your strategy here? Why are you doing this? What is the reasoning? So, in a context of a Christian, and I'm going to apply that to Jesus here because I think I remember where he's going with this. In the context of a Christian saying this, they're not saying this as in, God, I hate you for this. I'm mad at you for this. They'd be saying that as in, God, why? Is there another way? Why is this happening to me? I'm so confused, Lord. And it may be hard to trust you in this situation here because I don't know what's going on. So I just want to point that out.
I'm complaining about it.
Yeah.
What does it sound like?
Yeah, it sounds
Yeah, sounds like what?
Yeah, I understand where you're going with this, but you know what? I will continue with your reasoning. It sounds like you're complaining. Yes.
Very good. So when I say, why have you done this to me? That's mean I'm not happy with what you have done to me. Now, you give a very good definition for but you contradicted yourself in your explanation. Now, why have you done this to me? I'm complaining. Exactly like what Jesus did when he was on the cross. He was complaining. So if Jesus went to the cross willingly, as you said, and he laid down his own life, he would never complain. Why is that? Because in Matthew chapter 27, verse 46, Jesus says and shouts, Ili, Ili, lama sabachthani. That means, my God, why have you forsaken me? So he was calling his God, and he was asking God, why have you left me? Why have you forsaken me? So does that sound like he really wanted to be forsaken, or he was complaining to God for forsaking him? Exactly what I said. Why have you done this to me? So Jesus was telling God, why have you done this to me, God? So he doesn't sound like a person who really wanted to be crucified. Even if you read in Matthew chapter 26.
All right, we want to stop there because he's going to mention a lot of verses. So I want to point out a couple things. Number one, he is doing what is known as the machine gun strategy. The machine gun strategy is essentially where you fire as many points as you can. And it sounds like a good thing, right? Oh, look at this guy. He's so smart. Look at all the points he's making. But it's very disingenuous to do this. Why? Because if you are on the other end of the machine gun strategy, you can't follow exactly what the person is saying. So it's already hard to respond because, like, okay, I got to try to remember these 5, 6, 7 points they're making, which tend to be really fast. He wasn't speaking too fast there, I don't think. So at least that. Some people do it fast for extra style points. But that's going to be number one. I'm going to point that out. He was doing the machine gun strategy, and it's not a good strategy to use. It really just is not a good look for you, at least to me. Now, the other thing I want to bring up, he did not address John chapter 10, verses 17 to 18, which I'm going to pull up right now. And they say the following. John chapter 10, verses 17 and 18. Therefore, my Father loves me because I lay down my life that I may take it again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of myself. I have the power to lay it down, and I have the power to take it again. This command I have received from my Father. So, what Jesus is saying there is that he's personally laying down his life. No one is taking it from him, right? It's not outside of his will. He is laying it down. So he never addressed that verse specifically. And now he's running to these other verses. So that's the other point. Now, in regards to Matthew 27:42, I believe he quoted, my God, why are you forsaken me? Which Reddit Teresa pointed out, and we're going to get to this a little more. Whoops, it's 45. It's 45, excuse me. Wait a minute. Hold on. What was it? I'm actually now I'm confused. Oh, 46 maybe. That is it. Sorry. Excuse me. I forgot. Matthew 27:46. At the ninth hour, Jesus said, Eloi, Eli, lama sabachthani. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it, but it means, my God, why have you forsaken me? So, why did Jesus say this if he wanted to go to the cross? Well, number one, even so, Christian, a normal person, let's just say a normal person says that, a normal Christian, my God, why have you forsaken me? The expression does not necessitate that the person is going into a certain situation in life against his own will, that God is forcing him into some sort of situation. It just means that the person feels like, oh, is God not with me? Is he working? And to apply this to Jesus, I think Jesus could experience that because he was truly man, truly human, and could experience human emotions. He could have these human expressions. It wasn't just a body taken over by God. No, Jesus was truly human and did truly experience human emotions. So I do think he could absolutely express this to say, God, the Father, my Father, where are you? What's going on? I think he can experience that. Now, if we go, he's actually quoting Psalm 22, alluding to it. And as Ready to Reason pointed out, this is a Jewish practice to quote the first part of a psalm. So you see, it says it right here, my God, why have you forsaken me? And when you read the psalm, the psalmist isn't like complete doubt of God, because when you keep reading in verse 3, it says, but you are holy, enthroned in the praises of Israel. Our fathers trusted in you. They trusted in you and delivered them. They cried to you and were delivered. They trusted in you and were not ashamed. So Jesus is calling back to the psalm, showing how this is fulfilled in him. So I don't think that the only thing Jesus is expressing is his own sorrow, but I think he's also calling back to the psalm for people to see that, yes, I do fulfill this. Now, I'm not going to walk through all of it because it's going to take some time, and I don't want to spend too much time on that, but that's just when I want to point out that Jesus is calling back to that. So that's why he says, my God, why have you forsaken me?
Verse 39, Jesus said, shouting, let this cup pass from me. Yet, can I finish, please? Yet not as I will, but as you will. So we have two different will here. The will of Jesus is to let this cup pass away from him. Your commentary said this cup means either crucifixion or death. So Jesus told God, let it go away from me. I don't want it. It's not my will. It is your will. So let your will be. So we have here two will. The will of Jesus that he doesn't want to be crucified, and the will of the Father who wants him to be crucified. So Jesus said, let it be your will, even though it's against my own will. He even repeated this again in Matthew chapter 26.
So why did Jesus say in Matthew 26:39, oh my Father, if it is possible, this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but you will. Now, it's first important to point out that as Trinitarians, at least most Trinitarians, as I'm aware of, we believe that Jesus has two wills, a divine will and a human will. So that's just want to point that out really quick. But even without that, why does Jesus have this other will? Right? Doesn't that mean he doesn't want to go to the cross? Now, I think one thing to point out is no one claims that Jesus goes happily to the cross, like he's jumping for joy. Right? Jesus knows what's at stake here. The cross is a brutal way to go. So he knows what he's about to go through. So here, Jesus, he's just expressing his fear, his, I don't know if I want to say doubt, but I'm trying to be careful the way I word it here. Expressing his human emotions about this. It's not like he's happy to do this. He knows what's going to happen, but he still goes with it anyway. Now imagine this, a Christian going through a certain situation. If he's going to ask, Lord, if there's another way, let it happen, but not my will, but yours. The expression is not, I don't want to do this insofar as he's being forced to, but it's, if there's another way, let it be, because I'm afraid to do this, but if this is the only way, Lord, then I will go through. So this expression, even if we're going to go without the Trinitarian theology of the two wills of Jesus, it still doesn't contradict the cross being a part of his will, because Jesus is going with the Father's will, not as I will, but as you will, Lord. And we go to John 4:34 really quick, because Jesus said to them, my food is to do the will of him who sent me and to finish his work. So Jesus, that's Jesus' will also. His will is one of the Father, to do the work of the Father. That is his will. That is his food, as he says in John chapter 4.
More clearer verse in John 8:40, Jesus didn't want to be killed. He told his enemy, why you have to kill me? Why you want to kill me? He said, but now you seek to kill me. John 8:40, Jesus telling his enemy, why you want to kill me? I don't want to be killed. Why? Because I am a man that have told you the truth, which I have heard of God. This did not Abraham. So he's telling them that I don't want to be killed. Why you have to kill me? See, so those are some verses prove to you that Jesus didn't go to the cross willingly. He didn't want to be killed. We have two different wills, the will of the Father and the will of the Son. The will of the Father is to kill him. The will of the Son is not to be killed. And he was crying on the cross and telling the Father, why have you forsaken me? Why have you done this to me? So what can you say about this, please? Thank you very much for letting me.
Okay, so there was a few other points he mentioned, but I'm going to cut them out of the video because it's the same argument as Matthew 26:39. So I don't have to address it. It's the same argument. The two wills, the cup, right? It's the same thing. So John 8:40. I'm really baffled that he actually brought this up. So why, if Jesus if it was Jesus' will to die, why was he rebuking the Pharisees for trying to kill him or escaping from them from trying to kill him? And the easy answer to this is it wasn't his time yet. If you read the Gospel of John, at the hour, there's an hour spoken about in John. That is the hour of his crucifixion. That is what that hour refers to. So I can look up the word hour, and hopefully I'll get an example. But that is what that refers to. There is an hour in John where Jesus is to be crucified. You see the word hour there 20 times in John. So right here, John 7:30. This is the best example because it functions in a few different ways, but the main way is crucifixion. So John 7:30, therefore they sought to take him, but no one laid a hand on him because his hour had not yet come. Now, maybe ALAA DEEN knows about this or maybe he doesn't. But I just find it ironic that he's saying, you're not on my level of knowledge, but he mentions a verse like that, right? So in John, the reason that Jesus is rebuking the Pharisees for trying to kill him or escaping from them is because his hour of death had not yet come, right? And here in John 7, when they try to take him, they weren't able to lay a finger on him or hand on him because it wasn't his hour yet. That's why he didn't die then. So there's all the points there. Next, I want to mention, so I'm not going to play the clip so much because it's going to take a bit of time. But if you go to in this video, if I can view chapter, I gotta hold on. If you view chapter and go to 2419 here. Nope. This is where we talk about Psalm 22 and we get into the textual variant in verse 16/17 in the Jewish Bibles. And there's a variant there. I'm going to pull it up here and it'll tell you. Psalm 22:16. And for when it says here, they pierced my hands and feet. If you go to the footnote, it says, so with some human manuscripts, LXX, which is a Septuagint, Syriac, and Vulgate, which is the Latin one from the 4th century. Masoretic text like a line instead of they pierced. Now, already with this footnote, you see that there are some human, I believe these are referring to mostly the Dead Sea Scrolls, I believe. You have the Septuagint, Syriac, and Vulgate. So we already have good attestation for pierce here. The Masoretic text, which comes later, is the only one that says like a lion. That's the only one we have. So that was what I was pointing out in the discussion. So he said Christians corrupted this, and I gave counter evidence. The Dead Sea Scrolls, and you can go back to the video and see my argument there. I'm not going to say the full thing, but I'll quickly address it here. The Dead Sea Scrolls and the Greek Septuagint, I'm not sure when the Syriac comes, so I won't really appeal to it. But those are the two evidences I really only needed. The Dead Sea Scrolls and the Greek Septuagint, which come before the time of Christ, which say pierced. And I asked him the simple question, and I think he confused my question with another question. We'll go to a comment really quick. But my question was if he could provide any manuscripts before the 1st century AD that said like a lion. He never answered my question. And he says here, your question, why Christian and Jew take the place of Muslims the day of resurrection. I answered your question twice in your last stream and this stream, 109:15. Why do you have to lie about it? Now here, I don't think he's lying in this comment, but I just think he's completely confused as to what's going on. Or maybe I'm confused, but either way, whatever. Maybe we're both confused. So the question I said he didn't answer was that question. The manuscript evidence for the reading like a lion. He never provided it. So that's what he did. That's the question he didn't answer. And you can go watch the whole discussion. Put it on 2x speed if you want. He never answers the question. He never gives a single manuscript before the 1st century AD that says like a lion. Not one. But even if we go with that reading, as I and Ready to Reason both pointed out, that still goes with the imagery of the cross. Because even in Rashi's commentary, as he was appealing to, it says that it's as if a lion is biting into your hands and feet. Lions have very large jaws. That still goes with the metaphor of the cross perfectly. So it was a whole straw he was grasping at. Now we're gonna address his last question. and then I think I'm going to propose my challenge. So let's answer the last question.
I said Jesus should be killed by your God on the cross for your salvation. I didn't say die. He was killed, then he died. So my question was, can you have salvation without killing innocent Jesus? Or he has to be killed by your God for your
Exactly.
salvation?
Yeah.
You answered me, yes, he should be
Yes.
killed. So I asked you a question after that. Killing an innocent person like Jesus, is it a godly act or is it a satanic act? Killing an innocent person, is it godly or satanic?
Okay, so you want me to answer?
Okay, so that was basically his question. I'm pulling up a few verses right now. But he's asking, is it a godly act for Christ to be crucified on the cross? And the answer is no, of course not. But I want to clarify some things. So, the Jews themselves weren't doing a good thing. The Jews and Romans, everyone involved in crucifying Jesus, the humans, they were not doing a good thing. That was evil to crucify an innocent man. Absolutely. That's agreed. But however, God was using that to bring good, which would be salvation. He brought salvation through that because there was a greater purpose in what Jesus was doing. And I pulled up a few verses here and passages, but just if you want to look into this more, the book of Job absolutely covers this, right? The book of Job is essentially about that. God brings good from evil. His ways are higher than ours, and we should ultimately trust him. It's a very deep, deep book. So you could definitely look into that. But we'll just keep it simple. We'll go here. Genesis 50, verse 20. But as for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, in order to bring it about as it is this day to save many people alive. So notice this, and this is literally basically the exact same thing, right? Joseph's brothers meant evil against Joseph when they tried to sell him into slavery. Was that a good thing from them? Of course not. But God used that. Joseph became second in command of Egypt, and look what it says: to save many people alive. The same thing with the cross. Was it evil for Jesus to be crucified? Absolutely. But God used that to bring good, to save people alive, right? Isaiah chapter 10. I will probably not read the whole thing, but these notes here are pretty good. So here it describes Assyria invading Israel, I believe. Assyria is being used to invade the people here of Israel. Okay, so I'm not gonna read this whole thing, but the basic point of the passage. So and verse 12 sums it up. But the basic point is Jerusalem, Israel will be invaded by Assyria. Assyria will be used for judgment, but Assyria is also going to be judged for their malintention. Verse 12 sums it up very well. Therefore, it shall come to pass when the Lord has performed all his work on Mount Zion and on Jerusalem, that he will say, I will punish the fruit of the arrogant heart of the king of Assyria and the glory of his haughty looks. So this chapter, I believe this whole chapter is basically dedicated to it, or maybe up to verse 19. But that's kind of the crux of what's going on. So that's another biblical example right there, Isaiah chapter 10. And finally, Acts chapter 2, verse 23. Him, this is speaking of Jesus, this is Peter's sermon at the day of Pentecost, being delivered by the determined purpose and foreknowledge of God, you have taken by lawless hands, this is evil, right? Have crucified and put to death. Peter is demonstrating this, that it's evil, right? It's evil. It's not a good thing that he does. That's evil. Lawless hands, he says. It's not a act of God for them to do that, but at the same time, God used it for good, right? And then Peter uses this to demonstrate the gospel. He's saying, look, this Jesus right here, whom you crucified, is now risen from the dead, and exhorts them to repent and have everyone be baptized, right? He's using this to present the gospel to them. So, no. So, yes, it was evil for the Jews to crucify Jesus. Absolutely. But God used that for good. That is the theological answer, the biblical answer. And you see that examples of that in the Bible or even in the Quran, right? Remember the verse I brought up right just now? Surah 9, 111. Is it good for someone to kill a Muslim in war? That act itself is not good for the. I'm sure Allah will judge that person. However, Allah uses that to bring good, right? the one who dies there, Allah gives rewards to him. So even in the Quran, right? Allah does that. So I'll say it one more time. Was the crucifixion itself evil? Right, it was. But did God use it to bring good? Absolutely. Now, I'll finish this video with my challenge and proposal to ALAA DEEN. I don't know if he's going to watch this, but this is my challenge. Let's discuss one-on-one this very topic. I gave you my presentation. You can now just listen to it right now, and you can prepare. We can have this discussion on this very topic based on the questions you asked. I'm down to do that one-on-one, and I'll even adjust this. We can do 2 or 3 minute back and forth instead of open discussion if you don't want me to interrupt you, and if you don't want to interrupt me. So that way, you have 2 minutes to say whatever you want, even if you lie about me, which you did in the previous discussion, actually. Even if you lie, I will keep my mouth shut until your time is up, and then I will tell you what time's up, and it'll be my turn. And I'll show the phone, the timer on the screen, so you'll see how much time you have. So we're going to do that, right? We can do that if you want. I would rather open discussion, but I'll do that if you want, right? I'm willing to concede that. If you don't want to do that, I have another proposal. I know someone on Discord that wants to discuss with you. I can host here on my channel, and I'll do my best to be unbiased. And if you don't like that, I can even try to find a Muslim moderator so we can co-moderate, and then we will moderate you two discussing. Those are my two proposals. If you reject both of those, then my conclusion is going to be you are running away from me. I'm going to label you as a coward, and I really just won't engage with you anymore. You can keep commenting on my page, fine, but I'm just not going to engage with you anymore because at that point I've lost all respect for you with little I had left. So that is the end here. That is the end. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope this discussion can happen, but to be honest, I doubt it happens. So this is what I'm going to end with. I'm going to rest my case. If he rejects the discussion, then I'm just not going to engage with him anymore. This is it. I rest my case. He's a coward then. So thank you all for tuning in. Hopefully we get some more content out soon. God bless you all, and goodbye.